I stared at my computer screen showing $700,000 in stolen Bitcoin, knowing that in 24 hours I'd either be the richest DEA agent in history or wearing handcuffs. The kid I was supposed to arrest had just made me an offer that would destroy everything I'd ever believed about right and wrong. October 2013. Baltimore DEA Field Office. The glow from my computer monitor was the only light in the room as I logged into my undercover persona, Nob, on the Silk Road Marketplace. For 6 months, I'd been living a double life, pretending to be a corrupt government insider selling information to Ross Ulbricht, the genius college kid running the world's biggest drug empire from his laptop. My name is Carl Force, 15-year veteran of the Drug Enforcement Administration, and I was about to cross a line that would transform me from the hunter into the hunted, from a federal agent into a federal criminal. The Silk Road investigation had consumed my life for over a year. This wasn't just another drug bust. This was the future of crime, billions of dollars in narcotics sold anonymously using Bitcoin, hidden behind layers of encryption on the dark web. Ross Ulbricht, operating under the alias Dread Pirate Roberts, had created something unprecedented, a digital drug empire that existed everywhere and nowhere, untouchable by traditional law enforcement methods. To catch him, I had to become him, had to think like a criminal mastermind while maintaining the moral clarity of a federal agent. The psychological toll was crushing. My undercover identity as Nob was perfect, a corrupt DEA agent willing to sell inside information about the investigation. Ulbricht trusted me because I fed him real intelligence mixed with carefully crafted lies, giving him just enough truth to keep him dependent on my information. But every conversation with him revealed how brilliant he was, how sophisticated his operation had become. He wasn't some street corner drug dealer. He was a libertarian idealist who genuinely believed he was creating a better world, free from government interference. The more I understood his philosophy, the more I began to question my own. The first Bitcoin payment arrived on a Tuesday morning in August 2013. $25,000 worth of cryptocurrency, payment for inside information about which Silk Road servers the FBI was trying to infiltrate. I was supposed to turn it over to evidence control immediately, following standard procedure for undercover operations. Instead, I stared at that digital wallet for 3 hours, watching the value fluctuate in real time. This wasn't cash in a briefcase. This was invisible money, untraceable, anonymous. For the first time in my career, I realized I was looking at temptation with no witnesses. The rationalization started immediately. I'm risking my life every day talking to these criminals, I told myself. I'm away from my family for months at a time, missing my kids' birthdays and my wife's anniversaries. The DEA pays me $80,000 a year to infiltrate billion-dollar criminal enterprises. Don't I deserve something more? But even as I made these excuses, I knew I was crossing into territory where good agents become bad agents, where the job changes you in ways you never intended. The second payment was easier to keep. Then the third. By October, I had accumulated over $200,000 in Bitcoin, all hidden in encrypted wallets that existed only as numbers on my personal computer. The psychological transformation was complete. I was no longer pretending to be corrupt for the investigation. I had become actually corrupt, and the worst part was how natural it felt. The adrenaline rush of deception, the thrill of outsmarting both sides, the intoxicating power of having secret wealth. It was better than any drug I'd ever confiscated. But Ulbricht was getting paranoid, asking more questions, demanding more proof of my access to inside information. To maintain his trust, I started feeding him real intelligence, actual FBI raid schedules, genuine investigation details, classified information that could compromise ongoing operations. I was betraying my oath, my agency, my partners, but I was in too deep to stop. The Bitcoin payments kept coming, and with each transaction, I sank deeper into a criminal mindset that felt increasingly comfortable. The breaking point came when Ulbricht asked me to have someone killed. He discovered that one of his employees, Curtis Green, was stealing from him and wanted Green eliminated. Instead of reporting this murder-for-hire plot immediately, I saw an opportunity to extract more money. I convinced my DEA colleagues to stage Green's death, complete with fake torture photos and a phony murder scene. Then I sent Ulbricht the proof, that his enemy was dead, and collected an additional $80,000 in Bitcoin as payment for the contract killing. Sitting in my basement that night, uploading photos of a fake murder to show a man I was supposed to arrest, I finally understood what I'd become. I wasn't a DEA agent infiltrating a criminal organization. I was a criminal infiltrating the DEA. Every moral boundary I'd spent 15 years defending had been obliterated by greed, by the seductive power of easy money, by the psychological corruption that comes from living too long in the darkness. The worst part was that I was good at being bad, better at it than I'd ever been at being good. The investigation concluded in October 2013 with Ulbricht's arrest at a San Francisco library, his laptop still open to his Silk Road administrative account. The media celebrated it as a victory for law enforcement, the takedown of the dark web's most notorious criminal enterprise. But while the world was watching Ulbricht in handcuffs, I was at home transferring the last of my stolen Bitcoin into offshore accounts, planning how to launder $700,000 in cryptocurrency without triggering federal banking alerts. For 18 months after the arrest, I lived in constant terror that my crimes would be discovered. Every knock on my door could be internal affairs. Every meeting with supervisors could be my last day of freedom. The psychological pressure was unbearable. I was investigating other people's financial crimes while hiding my own, testifying about Bitcoin money laundering while being one of the biggest Bitcoin money launderers in the country. The irony would have been funny if it weren't destroying my marriage, my health, and what remained of my conscience. The end came in March 2015, when federal investigators traced the Bitcoin transactions back to my personal wallets. The evidence was overwhelming. Hundreds of communications with Ulbricht, dozens of cryptocurrency transfers, detailed records of my systematic theft of government funds. When they arrested me at my home in Baltimore, my first thought wasn't shame or regret, it was relief. The psychological torture of living a triple life had finally ended. During the trial, prosecutors painted me as a corrupt agent who'd betrayed everything the DEA stood for. They were right, but they missed the deeper truth. I hadn't started corrupt. I'd been transformed by the work itself, by spending too much time in the criminal mindset without adequate psychological protection. When you pretend to be bad for long enough, the line between performance and reality disappears. When you see how much money criminals make compared to the agents trying to stop them, the temptation becomes overwhelming. The judge sentenced me to 78 months in federal prison, calling my crimes a profound betrayal of public trust. But the real punishment wasn't the prison time. It was living with the knowledge that I'd destroyed my family, my career, and my integrity for Bitcoin that was worthless the moment I stole it. The cryptocurrency I'd risked everything to obtain had crashed in value by the time I was arrested, making my crimes not just immoral but financially stupid. In prison, I had plenty of time to analyze what had gone wrong, to understand the psychological mechanisms that had transformed a decorated federal agent into a federal criminal. The isolation from normal moral frameworks, the constant exposure to criminal thinking, the inadequate oversight of undercover operations, all of it had contributed to my downfall. But ultimately, the responsibility was mine. I'd made the choice to keep that first Bitcoin payment, and every subsequent choice had flowed from that initial decision to value money over morality. The Silk Road case became legendary in law enforcement circles, held up as a model of how technology can be used to combat digital crime. But my part in the story became a cautionary tale about the dangers of undercover work, about how agents can be corrupted by prolonged exposure to criminal culture. New protocols were implemented, additional oversight was mandated, and psychological evaluations became mandatory for long-term undercover assignments. My crimes had at least served to protect future agents from making the same mistakes. Today, 6 years after my release from prison, I work as a security consultant, helping companies protect themselves from the kinds of crimes I once committed. The irony isn't lost on me. I'm using my expertise in Bitcoin money laundering to prevent Bitcoin money laundering, applying my knowledge of digital crime to combat digital criminals. It's not the career I planned when I joined the DEA, but it's honest work, and after everything I've done, honesty feels like a luxury I don't deserve. The psychological scars remain. I wake up some nights in cold sweats, reliving the moment when I decided to keep that first Bitcoin payment knowing that single decision destroyed everything I'd worked for. The what-if scenarios torture me. What if I'd followed protocol? What if I'd reported the corruption instead of participating in it? What if I'd remembered that the badge I wore represented something more important than my personal bank account? But the hardest part isn't the regret. It's the understanding that part of me enjoyed being corrupt, that there was something seductive about living outside the law while pretending to enforce it. The psychological rush of deceiving everyone around me, the thrill of secret wealth, the intoxicating power of playing both sides. Those feelings were real, and admitting that they existed is the first step toward ensuring they never control me again. The Silk Road may be gone, but the dark web continues to evolve, creating new challenges for law enforcement and new opportunities for corruption. Agents today face the same temptations I faced, the same psychological pressures that transformed me from a hero into a criminal. The technology changes, but human nature remains constant. Give someone enough power and enough temptation, and eventually, they'll find a way to justify betraying everything they once believed in. Share this story to remember that corruption doesn't happen overnight. It happens one small compromise at a time, one rationalization after another, until you wake up one day and realize you've become the very thing you swore to fight against. The line between good and evil isn't as clear as we'd like to believe, and anyone who thinks they're immune to temptation has never been truly tempted.